inside the proxy interface. So now the third step is to configure the proxy bean itself. I have created the bean with the name as customer proxy, and the class is going to be a proxy factory bean. For this proxy factory bean, we need to give three inputs. One is the target. So who is the actual target? And our actual target is going to be customer IMPL, and the second input is the proxy interfaces, what this target actually implements, that is the customer here. So during the runtime, the code generation library will create the proxy bean which implements the customer interface. So it pretends that to the caller that it is having a browse method inside it, whereas this will again in turn call the target's browse method. Now the third input is going to be the interceptor names, where it will ask for who can give the information about what at what point cuts and who is the real advisor. So we are configuring it as a CAFE owner before and after advice, so which is our reg expression method point cut advisor. Now let us see this example with an execution. Here I have created the customer IMPL. I have the CAFE owner method class with all the four methods, and I have the customer IMPL which has the browse method which is implemented here, and the internet advice which is implementing the method before advice. Now I have the CAFE owner which is going to be injected as an dependency by the Spring framework. Because I am implementing the method before advice, I have to override this before method. Here in this, I am executing the log in time. So if I execute the internet CAFE, I am getting the proxy, customer proxy instead of customer IMPL. Please remember that only when you call the proxy factory, the Spring will be able to understand what advices needs to be applied, because it's only the proxy factory bean which has the information of who can give the advice and for what kind of pattern methods need to be applied with the advice. So we need to call the customer proxy, and once we run this method, run this class, you can see that the log, the in time and name of the customer, which is actually the method log in time which is getting executed, and then the customer IMPL's browse method is getting invoked. So here the reg expression method point cut advisor is actually pointing to the internet advice, where the Spring is understanding by looking at the type as method before advice. So it came to a conclusion that the advice needs to be applied before the method is going to get executed, and this will get executed before the browse method is going to get invoked. And if we go ahead to implement the after returning advice, then we need to implement the after returning method here, and I am just calling this dot get CAFE owner dot log out time here. So with this, once the browse method is over, the out time will be executed from the CAFE owner class. So I'm just executing the class again. You can see that log out time is also coming here. That means the CAFE owner's log out time is being executed now. And now I would like to implement the after throws advice. its throws advice. Now once if I implement it, this kind of marker interface which does not force you to override anything, we need to implement the after throwing, and the parameter it takes is throwable. If the method throws an exception, then we are just calling kfono dot cancel billing. So now I'm just going to modify the customer IMPL to throw some exception. Stating the connection lost. So when this method throws an exception, the after throwing method will get executed from the internet advice. So if I run this, you can see that an exception is being thrown. So the moment when an exception is being thrown, the cancel billing method is getting invoked. So this is how after throws advice will work. When a method is going to throw an exception, this particular advice will be invoked. And finally I'm just going to comment this throw new exception here. And finally I'm going to implement the around advice, which for which we need to implement the method interceptor, and because of which we need to implement the invoke method here. So I'm just going to say allocate a system to customer, which is going to get executed before a method is going to get executed. And then after that I need to tell, say this is my method argument. I need to tell method dot proceed to proceed with the next target method execution. And after the method is over, I'm going to tell as deallocate the system. So if I execute this method, so you can see that, first allocate a system to the customer, which is going to get executed, and then once the whole method is over, the deallocate system is going to get executed. That means this invoke method will be useful to execute certain statements before a particular target method is going to get executed, and also after it finishes successfully, the rest of the statements will get executed. This is how the aspect oriented programming works in the Spring AOP. And please remember that Spring does not support advising to the methods which are marked as final. The reason is that the methods which are marked as final cannot be overridden, whereas the proxy factory bean tries to override the methods which are on the runtime. So methods marked as final cannot be given the advisors, and Spring AOP does not support those methods, and also the AOP cannot be applied for the field level. To implement the aspects at the field level, we can go ahead to use aspect J or some other framework known as JBoss, AOP, etc. That's all for this session. Thank you. Visit java9s.com and leave your comments as a feedback. Thank you.